Welcome back to the Automation Podcast. My name is Sean Tierney from the Automation Blog and School. And this week on the show, I meet up with Jason Korarik from OnLogic to learn all about their line of industrial computers. Jason, thank you for coming on the Automation Podcast. I'm excited to learn all about OnLogic. We've been following you guys in our morning show and on the blog for years now. But before we jump into learning all about your company, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Sean, thank you so much for having me on this show. I'm really excited to be here. We work with integrators and automation on a daily basis, so I think that there's a lot of interesting content that I have for you guys. Just a little bit about me, my background. Spent a long time in the advertising world, and I got into this industry from two personal passions. One is computers, and the others or assembling computers, and the others is helping people. And that's exactly what we do here at OnLogic. We build and assemble and design industrial and ruggedized computers. And I head up the integrator program here along with a few other titles under my name. So it's really good to be able to address this audience, and hopefully they'll get something out of it. So without any further ado, I'll just kind of move into the presentation. For those of you that are joining us, I like to start off with these three images from the standpoint that it's a level set. You know, you see the auto industry, you know what's entailed in that, all the automation, the SCADA systems, and at OnLogic, manufacturing is one of our main industries that we work in. So whether it's working with Porsche or Volkswagen or Toyota or whoever it is, we do everything inside those plants, or we can do everything inside those plants, from being part of the mechanisms that control the robotic arms, to the SCADA setup for the assembly lines, to the machine vision used for quality assurance as those chassis roll off the line. So we're a really good fit in that area, our computers are. The second image in the center is another one that is kind of close to home for us. It's right in Charlottesville. This is the Carolina Panthers Stadium, and we've done a project with them. In fact, the integrator that helped put together the stadium came to us and said, hey, look, we're looking for some very specific units. We need it to control the HVAC system in the stadium, along with thermostats and some other things that go along with that. We also need to be able to monitor it within the stadium, and if need be, outside the stadium, remotely. And so we worked with one of the major HVAC companies to come up with a design for their requirements. And in the stadium, we help control everything from the temperature of the turf to where the food and wine are stored, all the way down to the individual thermostats that are in each of the individual suites. And take all that information, aggregate it, and using some of our other partners like AWS, Inductive Automation is a huge partner of ours, as well as Red Hat, we can aggregate all of that information and send it either into the cloud or have it controlled directly on site. So that was right in our backyard. We're located here in Cary, North Carolina. We have another office in Burlington, Vermont, which is our headquarters. But this is a good one to kind of show the flexibility of our systems in different environments. And then on the right-hand side, you're looking at a foundry. And for those of you that work in these types of industries, you know exactly the harsh conditions that I'm talking about that normal PCs can't stand up to, any off-the-shelf ones. So you definitely need a ruggedized PC within this environment. This is an image of Steel Dynamics. It's a foundry that if it might be our oldest existing customer, if not, it's one of our oldest customers. And they continually use our panels and HMIs to control the automation within the factory. So the pouring of the molten ore, the measurement of everything, the weights. We really look to these guys as kind of a great litmus test for what a rugged PC can stand up to. And for those of you that haven't been in those environments, there's obviously a lot of heat. Surprisingly, there's a huge amount of steam in these places because that's what they use to cool the ore as it comes off the line. And the vibrations from this large machinery. So all of those would mean death for normal PCs. Our rugged PCs are able to stand up to that, specifically our panel PCs. And the individuals that are controlling those, working with them every day, they're wearing these huge suits and they're banging on those panels. And that is something where you really need a hardened PC in those types of environments. So kind of a general idea of the different types of environments we can address, as well as, this slide here is really about how we make it. And, being a Vermont-based company with offices in Cary, North Carolina, overseas in Taiwan and Malaysia, and then also another manufacturing center over in the EU, we really pride ourselves in being able to say assembled in the US for our North American partners, and the amount of attention to detail that goes into each of the machines that we build. So, if you call us up, if you have a question about automation or wondering, what type of I/O you're going to need on a machine, the people that are answering the phones or even in our chat are all very experienced in making sure that they are able to get you the right answer at the right time. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about us is that once we have the specs for a machine, we build everything. It's built to order. And so after we get the specs, it's 5 days to build it, 5 days to ship it. We can send it anywhere in the continental US, Mexico, South America, wherever you need to have it delivered. Along with that, all of our support. So, on the off chance something does go wrong, Sean, and if that does happen, we can definitely correct that. But the people that you're talking to when you call in our supports team, they're all based here in the US. And so we don't outsource anything. Everyone you talk to has been on the line and built these machines. So they know the intricate details of every single machine. And if they can't help you out, we can elevate that to an engineer who will definitely be able to solve those problems for you.
Now, I just want to jump in here and, on the screen, we're seeing a computer case with a motherboard in it. But if people look closely, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, I mean, this is not your standard off-the-shelf motherboard, right? This is designed for a hardened industrial environment. Am I correct?
You are absolutely correct, Sean. So yeah, if you're looking, those of you that are viewing this, or if you're listening to me, we design all of our machines from the ground up. There's a few partners we have that we utilize, but in this particular image, the motherboard is our own design. The chassis is the heatsink. So there's no moving parts. There's no fans. There's no spinning platter for a drive. Everything's either an M.2 drive or an SSD. The cooling is all passive. So if you're putting this into a dirty or dusty environment, think of, I've got an example of a cabinet factory in here. And all of the sawdust that's being produced, none of that gets inside to clog up the machine or overheat it or any situation like that. So yes, the other thing too, Sean, that you mentioned was the way that these are constructed. We have our ruggedized line is something that can withstand vibrations that are on assembly lines where you use automation. So, you've got things moving down conveyor belts or material handling machines that are vibrating or moving quickly. And our machines can take that kind of abuse.
I mean, everybody who's listening to this, there's a subset of us who like ripping off, like building our own computers. We love ripping off the case, doing upgrades, putting new memory in, putting motherboards in. And, if you think to a standard off-the-shelf motherboard, you could never mount that to a heat sink, right? I mean, you have heat sinks on all these little components all around the motherboard, and then you have your fan on top of your CPU. So these motherboards have to be designed specifically to take advantage of that huge heat sink that's the side, and it's so indicative of what your computers look like. A lot of them is they have a huge heat sink on one side, and this motherboard's sitting on top of that heat sink, and it's designed to make contact with that heat sink, so there is no fans needed. And so it's just, I remember when I first got in the business in 1990, and they were trying to explain to me look, we don't use the regular Intel chip you use in your household computer. Everything in this industrial computer is hardened, including the chips. They have to meet certain temperature and specifications, and that's why sometimes when the latest and greatest thing comes out for the commercial market, it's not available right away for the industrial market because they do
Yeah.
have to do their high volume, office computers, shipment first, and then they go back and they start hardening them for our environment. So I didn't mean to go off on a segue, but let me turn it back to you, Jason.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Sean. In fact, one of the things we do pride ourselves on, and kind of get into this, actually, it's a good segue to this slide, is that we have a really deep relationship with Intel. And their newest products, their 13th gen, and now they're releasing their 14th gen, we're able to put those into some of our newer computers because of that relationship. And so typically what we're doing is we're using embedded chips. They have a longer life cycle. They're made for industry. And one of the things I didn't mention on the last slide is that we build every single model to have a maximum or to have a lifespan of 5 years. So there's companies out there, like if you think of the pharmaceutical industry, they any little change that you make to that machine, whether it's swapping out a stick of RAM or putting in a different hard drive or adding a different IO on it, that has to be, it needs to be recertified. And that takes time and it takes a ton of money for that recertification. And so if they can standardize on one of our units, they know that they have a window for 5 years minimum that this machine is going to be supported and parts are going to be available if needed. At the end of those 5 years, one of the best things that we are able to do is do a last time buy, and then they can extend that out another 5 years. So you've got a 10-year window where you're guaranteed to have support for those machines and be able to standardize on those. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That is something that many people don't think of when they're putting these things together. And we've have a lot of machines that have been running for 10 plus very harsh environments. So anyway, taking a look at our different families of computers. So for those of you that are viewing this, we've got industrial computers, ruggedized, panel PCs, and edge servers. So most people know us. They can look at our machines and see our heat sinks and the bright orange color and understand that it's OnLogic. The difference between industrial and ruggedized computers, industrial are fanless, ventless, just like our ruggedized ones, but their temperature specs are lower. They're typically 0 to 50 degrees Celsius. I wouldn't say those are normal operating conditions for an office environment, but think of a non-carpeted environment, like a manufacturing center or maybe some kind of warehouse for logistics, things like that. So that's typically where our industrial machines will go. Then you move on to our ruggedized line, which I've mentioned a few times, shock and vibration resistant. You've got wide power input range. So, these things can be powered off of, direct wired to a panel for 24 volt or run off of a car battery or a truck battery. They're able to accept those wide voltages. The other thing is they're typically deployed either in vehicle or in a very remote location where it may take hours or even days for somebody to reach those to program them. So they're set out there and they're expected to run flawlessly for their entire lifetime. A lot of the times they'll be in oil fields or they could be on top of a wind turbine. Who knows where they might end up, but the temperature variation for those are very wide, minus 40 C to 70 C operating temp. And when we say 70 C as a maximum, you're still getting the maximum performance out of that CPU. It won't thermal throttle until it gets over that particular hump. So our ruggedized machines are meant to take a lot of abuse. So, and then you have our panel PCs. These are deployed throughout any type of manufacturing center or to monitor PLCs or control different machines throughout the factory floor. Come in a variety of different sizes from 8 to 24 inches in size. Resistive or capacitive, we do daylight. So there's we have really high nits on some of these, up to 1500. The other thing too is that these panels are IP65 rated for their front bezels. So for those of you watching, you can see this is flush mounted. We do a lot of these in meat packaging or in any type of foodstuffs or even in pharmaceutical, where they're coming in and spraying down the floors and washing it off. So our panel PCs can take that type of abuse as well. And then on the far right side, you've got our edge servers. And so this is something where, most people think a server is a server. And with us, we've really tried to, if somebody asks me, what's the difference between you and one of the major manufacturers of other servers out there, my response would be is that we are more customizable than those particular servers, and you don't need to buy from us in large quantities. So, everything that we do, any of these families, they're all completely customizable or configurable, I should say. So you can go to our website, you can add what type of I/O, what type of memory, and any of the other components that you need to it. There's a really easy to use filter on those. You just plug in what you want. It produces a price. You can order off online for us, or you can, talk to us if you're not sure what you really need, and we'll help you spec out exactly that. So edge servers, one of the other things that we're really doing is we're getting into the machine vision and machine learning space. So we've just released a new server called Axial, and that is something where it is a 1U half-depth server that can support a full-size graphics card. And that's meant to be deployed on a manufacturing floor or near a manufacturing center's floor, so that it can learn in real time help those machines become more productive and more efficient over time. The other thing that it is set up to do is really host a large array of cameras. So if you're using machine vision, that can all feed directly into that server. So lots of options there for you.
Now, I don't know if people know this. Explain to the audience why, if you're going to deploy a machine learning system on the plant floor, why it would be important to have a full-size graphics card. I don't know if everybody's putting the two of those together.
Oh, yeah, okay. So one of the things that machine learning really needs, it's repetitive. And so graphics cards, they're able to take information, and that single stream of information, they're able to process that very, very quickly, faster than a CPU, or basically faster than a CPU, many, many times faster than a CPU. So when you have multiple cameras set up and you're trying to adjust your assembly line or your quality checking, or you're looking for abnormalities in the production that's being done, or even in a safety environment. A lot of times the cameras are used for safety. So, we have the red zones or the hot zones where you don't want people stepping in because they might get injured. All of that is being captured, and that's a massive amount of data. These graphics cards paired with the processors that are inside of our inside of our servers process all of that real time, make real time adjustments to that assembly line, and create added efficiencies for that automation line. Does that answer your question, Sean?
Yeah, no, and I think that ties back to a story we looked at this week on the morning show about how NVIDIA is in the lead in the whole machine learning AI spectrum, and that kind of ties directly into it because of the capabilities of their GPUs. They're more apt to be able to do that, and that's why a lot of self-driving cars we use them, because they're looking at pictures from or video from the car as it's driving along, and that's what they're designed to do, is process those repetitive frames. So I just thought it was a nice tie-in to a story we had earlier in the week about NVIDIA. But I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So this next set of images that I have up, we've got heavy industry, logistics, manufacturing, medical, retail, smart ag, smart city, and transportation. This is a list of the top industries that we support with our computer lines, with our rugged and industrial computers, along with our edge servers. So energy, logistics, and manufacturing, those are probably the top ones that we work with. But medical, smart ag, and transportation, again, we've seen a really sizable uptick in these. And the reason being, I should say, a sizable uptick over the last 3 to 5 years. And the reason being, it's different for every industry. But if you look at medical, for example, they have very sensitive instruments, and sometimes the whir of a fan or the clink of a hard drive will upset that information that they're recording. And so with a fanless, ventless design, you've got no sound. And because we're ruggedized, they can mount us on carts, attach us to a screen, and make that device mobile when they need it. Smart Ag's another really good one where we're seeing more and more robotics in the field. And our machines, because of the graphics cards, or even without them, help power these robotic arms and help process the instructions that they're receiving at a rate fast enough so that they can do those jobs efficiently. Transportation is another big one. We work with probably one of the largest transportation companies in the United States. They're on the East Coast. And we have retrofitted all of their buses with our ruggedized machines. And the main reason that they have chosen to work with us is because of the capabilities of integrating their GPS positioning within our systems, and because of the engineers that we have working with our antennas. So those machines that we've put into these buses, they run everything from the payment system to the lighting to the advertising that goes in there, and then also the signage that's telling you when to get off at the next stop. But really behind the scenes, what they're really one of the major jobs that they're doing is they are pinpoint positioning that bus or that boat or whatever it might be back to headquarters so that it's never lost, whether it goes through a tunnel or it's weaving its way around huge skyscrapers. GPS signal from a satellite isn't always going to work in those situations, but because of dead reckoning, we're able to utilize that source to get pinpoint positioning for those particular transportation machines. And then I'll just quickly touch on energy, heavy industry, logistics, and manufacturing. All of those, I talked a lot about manufacturing, so assembly lines, SCADA systems, robotic arms were used heavily in those. With logistics, it's almost a similar story to transportation from the standpoint is we're helping companies understand and utilize efficiencies by processing that on the floor inside a warehouse, and for example, understanding where all of their forklifts are and making sure that they're operating in a safe way. Energy and heavy industry, we work very heavily in the oil and gas industry, but more and more we're seeing renewables as a leading source because of all the batteries that they're using, and they need a fanless, ventless, ruggedized machine to understand what's going on and monitor those batteries that are in remote locations, like across the Trans-Canadian Highway. They've got basically fill-up stations or charging stations for electric vehicles. And I had one individual explain it to me. He's like, Jason, think of this computer as a gas station attendant that never takes a break, never sleeps, doesn't get any holidays off, and is always there and able to report to headquarters what's going on at their station. And that's a lot of responsibility. And we are able to answer that call with our machines because of the reliability factor and I guess just how reliable they are. So here's an example of a testimonial from a customer. And this is from Advanced Farm. If you have a couple minutes, Sean, or anybody that's watching this, go to YouTube and look up Advanced Farm. They have some fantastic video of these little mechanical pincers picking strawberries. To me, it's just mesmerizing, the amount of programming that goes into this for those pincers to understand what is a ripe strawberry, what's a rock, what's not a ripe strawberry, and where to put these fruit when they pick them off the vine. So with OnLogic, what we've done here is we are the processing unit for all of the AI on these machines. So there's a camera mounted on each one of these pincers, and as these pincers come down, the camera's the eye for the machine, and it's saying, okay, this is a ripe strawberry. It's analyzing it, what color it is, what texture it is, whether it's a rock. All of this information is being processed real time on a machine that's moving up and down a strawberry field 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, rain or shine. So it could be dusty, muddy, dirty. Again, for a regular computer, very hostile environment. For ours, it's just another day on the job. So they're going through picking each of these strawberries out, running tons and tons of code, and there's multiple pincers. It's almost like a flatbed truck with multiple arms on it underneath it, picking it up. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is that what's going on around this machine. So not only is it monitoring the work that's being done underneath it, picking the strawberries, but it needs to be cognizant of the surroundings. So if an animal or a person walks in front of the machine, or if another vehicle moves in front of it, the cameras on that machine need to understand whether it's a threat or whether it's not. And if it is a threat, what does it do? How does it react in that situation, and be able to process it real time? So we're controlling what's going on underneath, and then also the surroundings of it, taking all of that information, processing it on that unit, and then pushing it to the cloud or to a remote repository that's near that field. So this is a great use of our machines real time. And like I said, if you got a chance to check out Advanced Farm, go to YouTube, look them up, and it'll show you real time what they're doing. It's pretty impressive.
I want to be the guy who gets to program those arms to fend off a raccoon who's trying to steal those strawberries. Like, could I swarm all the arms together in one location? And, anyways, back to you.
That might be possible, Sean. I would like to see that. So I've talked a lot today, Sean, about our capabilities of our machines and where they're being used and how they can be used in SCADA setups and on assembly lines. And the other thing that OnLogic really tries to be is an end-to-end solution for all of the people that we work with. So not only do we build, design, manufacture these ruggedized and industrialized computers, but we can do many, many more things. So prototyping, I haven't talked much about that. If there is, most of the time, if you're purchasing one of these, you want to test it out and make sure it works. We have a program. I'll mention that. I've got greater detail on that in the next slide. But we do a full prototyping with these. Branding is another thing that we do. So for those of you that are watching, we have several units on here. For those of you that aren't watching, I should say, we have several units on here, different colors, different logos. If you look at our machines right now today, if you go on our website, you see a black and orange color scheme or a orange and silver color scheme. If you really want to have your logo on those machines and make it look like a piece of whatever you're putting it onto, we have a lot of panel manufacturers that are concerned about the color matching inside the panel, making sure everything looks neat. We're able to match any type of color. We're able to put any type of logo on our machines. So it can really be personalized to the company receiving it. In addition to that, we're also able to do software and BIOS imaging for customers as needed. It's a small charge, pretty nominal, but it could save you a lot of time in the field if you have 100 or so units going out to a place. Certifications. So we are certified pretty much any country that you'd want to ship product to. We are certified in that country. We have all the certifications. UL testing is a good example of that. Many of our units come with UL, but if you need it on the specific one, you talk to us and we can get that done. And then the other thing too, I mentioned this early at the beginning, is support. I really can't stress this enough. I find it really frustrating when I call and I get put on hold and I'm waiting for an answer on something, whether it's getting an operating manual or trying to understand, how this 4-pin connector works or whatever it might be. And then you wait on the line and you get somebody that doesn't really know what they're talking about or they're reading off a script. And at OnLogic, that's not something you're going to experience. Again, we really pride ourselves on everybody that is answering those phones has worked on the line, built these machines, and understands how they work and can offer technical assistance when necessary. So, yeah, a lot of different things that we cover. I guess that's, yeah. Any questions on that, Sean? Is there anything I missed, do you think?
No, just for the audio audience, I do think the brand labeling and the color matching, it just looks really sweet here on the screen. You guys do a good job with that. Of course, the heat sink you can't change. It's either going to be black or it's going to be silver. But you guys do a really good job brand labeling those. They looked really nice.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there's one case that we had with the heatsink where the customer wanted their logo embossed on the heatsink.
Hmm.
And so we were able to, for that particular instance, we were able to grind that pattern into the heatsink, taking a couple millimeters off of the heatsink, not affecting the performance, but it really looked sharp. It was a bright silver against a black, and that matched their color scheme perfectly. So yeah, so that's if you can think it, we might be able to do it, but we'll definitely
Nice.
want to talk to you about it. I'll say that.
Nice.
And then, so I did mention our prototyping. So for those of you, again, listening and are unable to see the slide, we offer a 30-day risk-free hardware trial program. It's called TryLogic. You need to call in and talk to our tech sales for this and just mention that you ask that you want to test a unit out. You're going to be using it for a prototype. You configure the unit the way you need it, pay for it. We ship it out to you. As long as you ship it back and it's undamaged and it's original foam, it's 100% money back guarantee. So we really want you to make sure that you have the correct unit for the job that you're doing. That is paramount to us, because if you have something that's spec'd perfectly, you're going to be very happy with it. If it's over-spec'd, you're paying for compute power that you don't need, and if it's under-spec'd, well, then nobody's really happy. So that's something that we offer as well. I know that there's probably a lot of integrators that are watching this program, and this is a special message to them is that we do have an integrator program, and it's being developed more and more every year. So if that's something that you'd like to know more about, you can either contact me directly, or I guess that would probably be the best way. Contact me directly and I can get you to the team that I work with that handles all of that. But we do have a special program for integrators.
Yeah, we do have quite a few integrators who listen to the show as well as OEMs. So that's great that you added that in there. Thank you.
And I guess that really wraps it up. So, I want to thank everybody for listening to me today. Thank you, Sean, for having me on the show. If you guys want to learn more about OnLogic or view any of our families of rugged or industrialized PCs, go to onlogic.com/industrial-PC. Once again, that's onlogic.com/industrial-PC. You can get all the information that you'd want on our website. The chat function, you're not chatting with a bot, you're chatting with an actual human. So ask real questions and you'll get real answers. And again, if you have any direct questions for me, I'd be more than happy to field those. My phone number and my email is jason.kov, as in Victor, ARIK, @onlogic.com. So once again, Sean, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, and I just if you do call or chat with them, let them know you heard them on the Automation Podcast, because it helps us because they know where you heard from them. And one of the things I want to say too is that even though we've covered their industrial computers and their rugged computers, I learned something today because I didn't know you guys had panel PCs. The
Mhm.
other thing I don't think we talked about, but I thought at one point
you guys were offering like small like Raspberry Pi units. Do you still do that?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's actually, thanks for bringing that up, Sean. My bad that I missed that. But yes, we have it's called our Factor 201 and 202, and
Okay.
they are Raspberry Pi powered industrial, so built from the ground up, designed to be industrial. It's not just a little CM4 platform with some 3D printed plastic around it. It's definitely an industrial machine, minus 20 to, I want to say, 60 C. So uh, various I/O on that thing. So yeah, that works really good in the building automation space. That's one of the number one uses that I've seen for it. Again, with industrial controllers in a SCADA setup, or just as a like an edge compute unit. That's something where it works very, very well.
Yeah, edge
So
computing is a big buzzword that we hear a lot today. I don't know that there's as many edge applications as there is buzz, but we've covered Stratton, we've covered Code System. Those are both PLC engines, IEC 61131 full blown that can run on a Raspberry Pi. So, it's a very interesting place in the industry where like, hey, I want to have the capabilities of using 61131, but but I don't have, I don't need to buy a very expensive $10,000 PLC to put in there, right?
right,
So, so I think that's a place where it's kind of an interesting area. If you needed a tiny PLC slash Linux computer, that's an option as well. So, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. You're actually located down there near my kids in Raleigh, and or Raleigh.
yep.
I think the kids always say I'm saying it wrong, but in any case, I want to really thank you for coming on the show and bringing us up to speed on your entire product line. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sean. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Jason for taking time out of his busy schedule to come on the show and bring us up to speed on OnLogic's line of industrial computers. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, please give us a like and a sub. And if you want to follow me or get in touch, you can do so over at automation.locals.com. You'll also find links to all of my new morning show episodes and all of the morning news over at automate.news. And of course, all of my training courses you'll find over at theautomationschool.com. With that said, I want to wish you all a courageous, fearless, and awesome week. And until next time, my friends, peace.